Back at Chad's Ford, for 2 hours after Maxwell was driven across the Brandywine, there was not much action. This period, between 10 a.m. and noon, has come to be known as the Midmorning Lull. Major Ferguson and his riflemen had taken a position on the west side of the creek. In his diary he writes, "We had not lain long, when a rebel officer, remarkable by hussar dress, passed towards our army within 100 yards of my right flank." Hussars were cavalry units, and this was probably Count Casimir Pulaski, a Polish cavalry hero who had helped drive the Russians out of Poland in 1771, and had come to North America by invitation of Benjamin Franklin in the summer of 77 to help drive the British out of the 13 former colonies. Ferguson continues, "He was followed by another, dressed in dark green or blue, mounted on a very good horse." This was likely George Washington himself, sitting 100 yards away from British sharpshooters. "Within that distance," Ferguson writes, "I seldom missed a sheet of paper, and could have lodged a half-dozen balls in or about him before he was out of my reach. But it was not pleasant to fire at the back of an unoffending individual, so I let him alone." Had Ferguson pulled that trigger, the history of North America could have been very different. Washington was relying primarily on Colonel Theodoric Bland of the Continental Light Dragoons for intelligence from the northern fords, but he heard nothing from him all morning. Just before noon he received a report from Squire Cheney of the Chester County Militia that Howe had been spotted heading towards Jeffreys Ford. This was quickly backed up by a report from Colonel Ross, stating that his patrol had indeed been engaged with the advancing British. Reports that the British army was split was good news, because it meant that the bulk of Washington's army at Chad's Ford was facing only a portion of Howe's army, giving Washington an opportunity to crush Knyphausen before Cornwallis arrived from the north. But there was just a small window of time to act. Washington immediately ordered Maxwell's light infantry to cross the creek at Chad's Ford, and for Sullivan's Marylanders to cross at Britton's Ford, while Greene's division prepared to follow up with the final blow. At noon, Maxwell and the 3rd Maryland Regiment successfully crossed the creek while Greene's men assembled. Then suddenly, they all pulled back. In mid-battle, Washington had received some disturbing intelligence, which stated that the British had not split their forces, and that Washington was being led into a trap, and in fact was facing the entire British army at Chad's Ford. Of course, we know now that that was not true. Most of the British were still up at Jeffreys Ford. So where did this faulty intelligence come from? It came from one of General Sullivan's men, Major Joseph Spear, who had ridden from Martin's Tavern to the Anvil Tavern that morning and, quote, "heard nothing of the enemy about the forks of the Brandywine, and am confident they are not in that quarter." Spear's ride through the countryside was in the very early morning, probably before dawn, so it's likely that he preceded Cornwallis and truly saw nothing. But hours later, by midday, the situation had changed considerably. So the question is, why did it take Spear so long to deliver this obsolete intelligence? Was it treachery? Or had Spear become distracted from his duties after a morning in the taverns? The only thing that's for certain is that his delayed report led to a lost opportunity for Washington to engage a vastly inferior enemy and quite possibly to force Howe's surrender at Brandywine Creek. Soon after his withdrawal, Washington finally heard from Colonel Bland that Howe's army truly had been split, but now it was too late to take advantage of the split. Cornwallis was bearing down on Washington's right flank. So Washington immediately sent 3 divisions, under General Sullivan, Sterling, and Stephen to take up a defensive position on Birmingham Hill, near the meeting house.